Hello everybody and welcome to Crunch My Numbers. This podcast offers you practical insights and strategies for business success. I'm your host Paul Redmond, and today we're diving into a topic that many entrepreneurs find both exciting, challenging, and the topic is buying a business. The process of buying a business is long and complex, and from finding the right opportunity to working with all the details required for a smooth transfer of ownership from the person selling to you. So it doesn't really matter whether you're a first-time buyer or you're a seasoned entrepreneur looking to expand your business or your portfolio. Understanding each of the steps that we're going to go through is crucial for making this a successful acquisition. So I'll be guiding you through we have 12 steps in the process, and we're going to navigate each of the steps and the complexities there. So this should give you a lot of confidence to approach a business acquisition. Okay, so step one in the 12-step approach is just positioning yourself for the acquisition. And to position yourself, you need to build your acquisition team. And why do you need a team? Because buying a business is a multifaceted approach and a process, and it involves a lot of people. It involves legal, financial, operational, and having a team of experts on your side that has experience in each of these aspects and can coordinate these complexities and build out your acquisition to make the overall process, one, a lot more professional. And if you're going to purchase a business off somebody and it looks and that you have that feel of a real professional outfit going, they're a lot more likely to want to work with you. But from your side, you'll get all your ducks lined up in a row and you'll have really well organized. And I'm going to go through some of the key members of your acquisition team. And I suppose the first person would be the business broker, or a person these are going to identify potential businesses, facilitate the negotiations, manage the entire buying process, the industry knowledge and connections to help you find the right opportunities for your acquisition. And also that business broker, we also call that the project manager on the overall system as well. And we tend to build the broker with the project management side of it, because project management is so important in the whole acquisition process. Just imagine you on one side have your accountant, your financial advisor, your industry expert, your legal team, your tax advisors, and then on the other side, you have all the same people. And then there's both the buyer and the seller, and the buyer's team and the seller's team. And all of those people need to be coordinated. And the information flow from all of those is so critical. So your business broker / project management team is really, really important. Now, those two team members can be completely different. In our organization, they're more or less the one team. The next person is your legal advisor. My thoughts on this are, there's so many good legal teams out there, but you need to ensure that the legal team that you're doing has commercial legal experience in buying and selling businesses, so they'll understand the process. They'll handle the contracts, they'll handle compliance, they'll handle the due diligence side of the legal stuff. And then their job is to protect your interests and avoid any potential legal pitfalls that you will go through in terms of the acquisition. Then you have your accountant. Your accountant will assist you with all the financial due diligence, the valuations, and the tax implications. Their expertise is essential, because they're going to help you understand the financial health of the business you're trying to acquire, and they're going to be able to advise you whether this is a good investment or not. You will then have your financial advisor, and your financial advisor, this is the person who will advise you on the cost, the buying, the lending, the corporate finance side of your deal, and this is also extremely critical. One of the most important people you will have in this will be your tax advisor. So the tax advisor will stand back and help you coordinate to suit your particular personal circumstances. So the coordination of that team and building that team is so essential. Now, there shouldn't be any real cost involved in this at the start, because all you're going to do is you're going to build a team together. You're going to inform the team that this is what you're trying to do, but you will get an idea of cost off these people at the very start. So you'll start to understand exactly what you're trying to achieve in this. So that's step one. So step two in the business acquisition is a step that's sometimes overlooked, but it's probably the most important step from my perspective when I'm discussing with potential people who are looking to acquire a business. And this is have your preliminary financial options available to you. So as you're going to purchase a business, do you have the funding available, or can you borrow the money to acquire the business that you're going to acquire? So understand the budgets, understand the amount of money you're going to need, and then have chats with your corporate finance team to see, is this funding available to you? It'll only be a preliminary conversation, but you should be able to secure some idea of financing options at that preliminary stage. And it'll give you the financial backing to make you, a lot more confident when you're going after somebody. Because if you're a seller, you'll want to know when somebody's going to buy your business, have you the source of funds to acquire the business? And the common financial funding sources are, obviously, the first one is your own personal funds. Would you use your own savings or money that you have in your business to purchase the next business? The other one then would be traditional bank lending. It's probably one of the most common areas for purchasing a business. And for that, you're going to need your standard collateral. You're going to need a solid business plan. Every loan that I deal with people has 5 different things in the loan. And it's an acronym called PARTS. The purpose of the loan, the amount of the loan, the rate of interest you're going to pay, the term of the loan, and the security attached to it. So this will be needed in every single loan application, that concept of PARTS. You then will have angel investors, where people will provide capital in exchange for equity or a share of the future profits in the business. This can be, particularly useful if you're going after and you want to do a lot of acquisitions, you want to buy up a lot of businesses. You then have private equity, and there is private equity firms out there that will invest in businesses with the goal of improving, but they're kind of also looking at the sellout part of this to take the money off the table at a later point in time. And one of the options that you can look at is seller financing. In some cases, the seller may offer to finance part of the purchase price, often with interest. This can be really beneficial in certain cases. In other words, that you're not paying for the money up front, you're actually paying for it out over a period of time. That's a type of seller finance. So the pre-approval process in preliminary financial options is what you're trying to achieve with this step. So consider pre-approval for loans or other financial options. This speeds up the acquisition process so much and gives you that, as I said earlier on, gives you that competitive edge when you're looking to move forward, and the confidence to move forward that you have that option, in your back pocket. So step 3 in the process is identifying the right industry. And the key points here we're going to look at are: 1, clarifying your business goals; 2, researching industry prospects; 3, looking at local competition; 4, looking at how to utilize resources together. So step one of the first key point here is clarify your business goals. Before diving into the market and before looking at this, it's important to clarify your vision for your business and your goals. You need to ask yourself, what are you actually passionate about, and where your skills and experience lie? So this will help you understand your risk tolerance, and also key, as different industries have varying different levels of risk and reward. So if it's an industry that you're already in, it's going to be a lot clearer and a lot simpler if you're just purchasing a business for an industry that you're already in. But this is one of the most important areas if you're new to business and you're new to acquiring. You really need to understand the risks and rewards. So that identification of the right industry type is critical. So how do you actually research the industry prospects? Well, you'd be looking at kind of trends and growth potential. You start by researching kind of mid to long-term prospects of various industries. Look at the industries that are growing, that have future potential, that align with your expertise and interests. And don't underestimate the interest part, because if you buy something you've no interest in, it's really difficult to actually make it grow. The next area is this regulatory concern. So if you have an industry that has its own set of regulations and legal considerations, you need to understand these before moving forward, because regulation challenges can have a significant impact on the business you acquire. So if you're a tax advisor, you need to be tax qualified. If you're an accountant, you need to be accountant qualified, because you cannot really go into that market and an industry. Like, you can't open a doctor's practice to run a doctor's practice if you're not a doctor in most countries around the world. The next thing is the market health. So you're looking at the industry, you're looking at the sector, and you're looking at the particular target that you have. But is the sector itself growing, or is the sector in decline? And they are the questions that you're kind of looking at as well. So make sure you really take account of the market health of the sector that you're looking to acquire the business in. Then you're looking at the local competition. So if you're buying a business that's operating locally, you need to understand the competitive landscape in your target region. So identify the major players, the saturated markets, how saturated is the market, and you need to understand the level of competition so you can determine how can you be successful and how can you differentiate your business from the business next door. This is not particularly if you're online business as opposed to, I'm talking here about a local competition business. If you have a shop and you're opening a shop on a main street and there's 10 other shops of the same type on the main street, you need to ask yourself, what's the differentiator for you? What's your unique selling point for somebody to come in and buy from you as opposed to staying with the other people? Then we need to kind of, if you're looking at, utilize the resources that are available out there. There's trade magazines, there's industry newsletters, there's market reports to give you insights into that particular industry. You can look at trends, emerging technologies, potential challenges. You need to do your research, or you need to get your research done. But initially, you need to do your own research to say, yes, this is why I think this industry will be suitable for my particular values and my particular culture as well. So now as we enter step 4, which is target the business, we just need to take a little breather and see what we've already done. So we've already built our acquisition team. We've already secured preliminary financial options to purchase the business. We've identified the particular industry type that we're looking to acquire in. And now we're looking at targeting the business. And again, here's where you start to use your team as well. You're going back to your business broker to help you with this target. But you need to set your acquisition criteria at this point. So with the industry selected, you need to understand exactly what you're looking for. So you determine the budget you're going to spend, the size of the business you're looking for, the location, the turnover that you're aiming for. And more importantly, consider whether you have the skills and experiences and the resources necessary to build and make the business successful. If you have a business and you're acquiring another business that's, say, 30% of your current business, it's a lot easier to go in and integrate that business into your current business. But if you're acquiring a business that's bigger than your own business, then it's going to be a lot more challenges coming down and there's a lot more risks involved. So that's kind of setting your acquisition criteria, and you're very clear with the team of people that here's exactly down to who, what, and when I'm actually looking forward to purchase. And then the broker will start, or you may know a business that you want to acquire. So you're exploring the opportunities that are out there. You're looking for businesses for sale. You're looking at unlisted opportunities, and then you're looking at a direct outreach. So the businesses for sale will be, they're listed on websites, they're listed through brokers or industry publications, the common areas where you'll start to gather the target of the business you're looking to acquire. But you will have other ideas where don't limit yourself to businesses that are officially for sale. Sometimes you can make just an unsolicited offer to a business owner, and this can lead to a fantastic opportunity. If you find a business that you're really interested in, it's really worth reaching out, even if it's not on the market. Now, how you reach out, we'll talk about later, but it is worth reaching out. And then you have a direct outreach. You approach a business directly through your broker, and the professional broker can make discreet inquiries and see if this business, if there is a favourable terms on behalf, or are they interested in just having an initial conversation. So that's the targeting, kind of one of the key points. The other thing is networking. So leverage your own network. If it's a business that you're in, your network will help you identify potential opportunities. You can talk to industry contacts. So look at all the suppliers that are in the particular business you're trying to acquire. Talk to some of those people and see that to know anybody that's looking to get out or sell their business or merge. These are kind of little hidden areas that you can look for. One of the most fantastic places is trade shows. Go to a trade show or a business association. Go to your local business network in your local town or village. Those areas are another fantastic way. But really be very, very mindful that you're approaching a business discreetly. So when you have identified the specific business, your discretion is your key, especially if it isn't publicly for sale. You might want to work with a business broker to facilitate the process for maintaining this confidentiality. And also, it is really important to put somebody between you and the acquirer. You're this person in the background who wants to approach. So that's one of the reasons why we have this team. That's the reason why the team is actually sitting there, is to work on your behalf, because there's things that they can say to the person that they're looking to acquire that you can't say. And that's not being disrespectful, but just that's their experiences in this area. Okay, so step 5 is conducting research. And in a lot of ways, step 4 and step 5 work together, targeting the business and conducting the research. But so the key points in conducting the research is you do your preliminary research, you experience a first-hand business, and then you work with the company. So conducting preliminary research, how you just do your background research and the market position. They're the two areas in the preliminary research. So once you've identified the target business, start with a thorough background check. Look at the website, look at the social media presence, see if there are any news articles or press releases, look at any red flags, if there's negative reviews, if there's any legal issues, or if there's a declining market presence. So that's the obvious background research that you can do. And a lot of that stuff is available publicly. There is a huge amount of information publicly available about all businesses. And then what you're trying to analyze is the position that that business has in the marketplace. Is it a market leader? Is it a really niche player in a particular market? Are they struggling to compete? So you'll understand the strengths and weaknesses, and that'll help you to assess the potential of what you're going to do with the business if you acquire it. So that SWOT analysis, the background checks, the preliminary research, this is why we're looking at it at the very start of the process. And then there's a few things you can do. Now, this works for some businesses and it won't work for others, but you can pose as a customer. So one of the best ways to learn about the business is visit it as an actual customer. Visit the business, purchase the product or service, observe the experience. This will give you so much insight into the operationals aspects of the business and how the customer service and the feel, what's the overall atmosphere for operating as a customer in the business. Now, I cannot tell you how powerful that is, because if you go in and you're treated exactly the way you want to add to the business, that makes it so much easier. So the next thing is working with the company. So gaining access, if the initial research is promises, the next step is to access the more detailed information. This will involve signing a non-disclosure agreement and building up the confidential information record. So you're getting your team, you're involving your team back here again, is to do the preliminary research after signing that non-disclosure. So that will be looking at financial records, contracts, and other sensitive data. We will then look at analysing the financials. So in that preliminary research, you will get access to some preliminary financial data to help you make a decision if you want to move the business forward to the next steps. You'll be looking at the profit and loss, the balance sheet, the cash flows, trends in the P&L, and are there any kind of unusual expenses or expenses that when you acquire, that you can actually get rid of those expenses, and is there any discrepancies that need further investigation? You'll be looking at the balance sheet, which is the assets and the liabilities. So you'll be looking at what assets does the business currently have, and is there any intellectual property there, that they specific methodologies and ways they have of doing something. And then you look at the liabilities, the debts, the legal obligations, if there's any lending, if there's any contingent liabilities. This will help you understand the true value of the business and what helps you formulate an offer for the business. Maintaining confidentiality throughout this whole process, because if you jeopardize that and jeopardize the trust element, the reputation will be damaged and the acquisition is really, really difficult, because people have walked away so many times at this confidentiality stage. So because they're giving you an open source information into their business and their family. So it's really important for you to recognize that and don't damage the reputation of here. So respect the terms of any agreements that you have signed at this point in time. Okay, now as we enter step 6, which is this step is to open formal negotiations with the acquirer that you're looking to have. So look at the background, you've done the research, you've made all the initial contacts, you've signed your non-disclosure agreements, and both parties have agreed to move this forward to the negotiation stage and seeking to acquire the business at that point. You're not committed at that point, but you're looking at the negotiation stage. So what are the key points here would be building a relationship with the seller is a big part here. So you're looking at conducting a preliminary valuation. You're going to officially start the negotiations. You're going to formulate a negotiation strategy. These are the four things that you're looking at here in this negotiation section. So under building a relationship with the seller, we're looking at establishing trust. That's one of the things we're trying to do here at this point, to see can both parties get on. So they go a lot smoother if there's a foundation of trust between the buyer and the seller. So start by building a rapport with the owner, showing respect for their business and being transparent about your intentions. That will establish everything from here on in. And if you cannot do that at this point, then you're more than likely going to step away from the deal. But the other thing that you're trying to understand is the seller's motivation. So you're trying to understand why they're considering selling their business. Are they retiring? Are they looking to move to a new venture? Are they dealing with financial difficulties? Knowing the seller's motivations will give you a better understanding from a negotiation point of view, but it'll also give you an understanding of why, is this business, if there are massive financial difficulties, is the business worth purchasing, or what kind of an offer will you make for the business? So then, before you really get into it, you need to establish a baseline valuation. So before entering formal negotiations, it's a good idea to conduct a preliminary valuation for the business. This will give you a baseline so that you can look at your offer on, and it brings you back to one of the very first steps is understanding, is this business in your budget? And do they have a reasonable expectation of the asking price? So getting the asking price from them before you actually make the official offer. And then you need to consider multiple factors, such as, remember, the business value isn't just about the financial implications and the financial numbers. It's about their brand reputation. It's about the customer loyalty. It's about the market position. It's about the growth potential. All of these have a massive impact on the value of the business. So don't just look at the financials. So now next we get into officially starting the notifications. So once you have a clear understanding of the business and the value, you can make an initial offer. It should be fair and based on your preliminary valuation, but it's not legally binding at this stage. There's nothing at this stage that you've committed to that you can't get out of here. So negotiation of the price would be one of the first points of that you're looking at. So be prepared to justify the offer with data and reasoning and an understanding of why you believe that their business is worth that. It's a process negotiation, so it's normal to go back and forth several times before reaching an agreement. That's naturally a normal part of the negotiation. That's why you have somebody do the negotiation for you, because it can become very emotive if you're involved in it yourself. Both of you have your own particular look at this. So the emotions will rise at this point to start to really begin to test the trust that you've built up. And the other things then we need to consider are the payment structure, how it's being paid for, is there seller financing, is there an earn-out in the sale, and is there post-sale involvement? Do you need post-sale involvement from the seller, and what level do you need that at? These are really, really important components of the deal at this stage. The last part of this section is we formulate the negotiation strategy. So before entering the negotiations, we need to have clear objectives as to what we're trying to achieve. This includes, again, our target price, the payment structure, and any other terms that are important to you, the acquirer. So developing the strategy outlines how to plan to use the different scenarios. Consider, we need to have a chat to consider how we're going to make a counter offer, what concessions are we going to make, and what stage are you prepared to say, thanks, this is not for me, and walk away. They're critical, but also in terms of that, the objectives and the strategy, you need to be really flexible because things change really quickly in this. So it's important to have a plan, but it's also important to stay flexible. So be willing to adapt your approach based on a seller's responses. And then you'll gather more information and you can make a different negotiation process. I've bought a number of businesses myself, and I bought one business sitting down with somebody, shaking hands, and we knew, because it was in the same industry I was in, after 20 minutes that the fit was there. Then the negotiation started all along. We kind of shook hands on the deal at the very start of it. And of other deals I've walked away from. So it's really important to get the feel. And at the end, you have all these people around you, but it's your business and it's your acquisition. So it's your decision. So you will have this feeling again back to your culture and values. Is the fit there? Is this right? And at that point, you're the one that's going to make the decision. So having this information behind you will help you, arm you with making that decision. So this section is looking at valuing the business. Now, where to put these sections in, the sections don't follow exactly in the order that you need to do. So this is a really, really important. So as the acquirer, you need to understand the valuation methods that the people that you have hired are going to use for valuing the business. So there is a number of these, and we'll go down through each, and there's 4 or 5 of them here, and we'll just talk about the ones we have here. So the very first thing is asset-based valuation. What is an asset-based valuation? This focuses on the value of the assets, the actual property, equipment, and stock that are in the business. This is often used to value significant physical assets in a business. So asset-based valuation is one of the models. Another model is an income-based valuation. So an income-based valuation looks at the earnings and determine the value. It involves looking at applying earnings multiple, and we look at this thing called an EBITDA. So the business profit is multiplied by a factor to give you the growth potential and the risk profile. So income-based valuations. The other one is a discounted cash flow. Now, this is less used, but it is a very, very important methodology. So we look at the future cash flows that are projected and we discount them back to present value. So if you have a business with a very stable line of income coming in over a period of time, the discounted cash flow analysis is a really good model. And what we mean by discounting it back to the current value. So if you have a business that's giving you X amount for the next 20 years, the value of money in 20 years' time is not the same as the value of money today through inflation. So we discount it back based on our own discounted factor that we use in this. But it is a reliable benchmark to use. So how do we value the assets? So asset valuation, so valuing tangible assets is a very specific part of this overall process. So when you're conducting this asset-based valuation, consider the age and the condition and what the actual is. Does it look and is it really the value? So what I mean by that is if you look at the book value of a business and the book value will have X amount, and that's using accounting principles where the asset is wrote off over a certain period of time. So once you write the asset off over, say, a 5-year period, the asset will be written down then. But the actual value of an asset could be 20 years. We've often seen assets that are there for 15, 10 years. So you're trying to assess, is there extra value in the assets that are shown on the book at less value? This is a key role because depreciation has a massive effect on determining current value. So that's really a very, very important one. So obviously, if there's real estate or property, this is a major component of the valuation. So you need to work with a proper, valuer, real estate appraiser to actually determine the current value of that property. Is it the same as in the books? Is there a gap in that? So if you're buying a business and they have the business overvalued, then you're potentially going to pay more for it. If it's undervalued, then therefore it's going to be to your benefit. So you really need to have a true value. So income valuation. So earnings multiple. This is the one we specifically use the most. And it's an area we always do this. So we look at a business and there's an EBITDA. And the EBITDA is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. And we add all of those numbers back to get a true profitable number that we can use. And we then apply the multiple depending upon the industry that you're in. So you might have a profit of an EBITDA of 100,000 and you're applying a multiple value of 4, 5, or 6, or 3, or 2, or whatever the multiple is for that particular industry. So when somebody is valuing a business for you, so you have your accountant in doing this business value, and they're applying all of these different strategies, they're applying all of these different methodologies. They should be able to sit down and explain to you in really simple terms why this value is potentially valued at this particular amount. So you will know yourself and you'll have a good feeling on what the business is valued if you're in that business. But if you're not in that business, then they should be able to really tell you and back up the valuation and have the confidence in when they do that, why that is the value, because you're going to be making an offer potentially based on that value. One of the things we're looking at the market valuations is you're comparing it to similar businesses. So if there's recent companies being sold in the industry, the people in the industry will give you an idea what the value is. So we're kind of adjusting for differences between the target businesses, the comparables, the factors, location, base, growth potential. All of these things come in to place. But above all of these technical valuation methodologies, a business's true value is what somebody is willing to pay for the business. That's really it. Like, it's the law of supply and demand. Like, if you have a business and I'm wanting this and I make an offer and you accept the offer, an offer of money is never an insult. Just remember that. So the very, very last part is hiring specialist accountants to do this, because as you've seen, all of this valuation is very complex, and it's really worth bringing in a specialized accountant who understands both the nuances of the industry and are able to stand over the value and give an objective assessment on why they believe this value is because they're trying to help you from overpaying. So look for an accountant who has done this, who has insight and specific team around them that can do this. And also you need to look at the regulatory changes and the market trends. So building the team, again, very technical section, this section on the valuation, but it's a really, really important section, obviously. Okay, so now we're going to look at section 8, which is drafting a heads of agreement. So let's just kind of recap. So again, you've built your acquisition team. You've got your preliminary financial or financing options available. You've identified the right industry that you want to acquire in. You've looked at the business that you want to acquire. We've conducted all our research. We've opened negotiations at this point. We have a business valuation that we're happy to go make an offer. And so now we've made our offer, and now we're looking at drafting a heads of agreement. What's the purpose of a heads of agreement? So this is a non-legally binding document that outlines the key terms of the deal. It serves as a framework for the final sale and purchase agreement and helps ensure that both parties are on the same page. Fantastic document, really, really important. And what are the key elements of a heads of agreement? The first thing is the payment terms. It should outline the purchase price, the payment schedule, and any conditions that need to be met before payment is made. It might include contingencies based on due diligence or financing, because at this stage it's non-legally binding, but you're going to do the due diligence where you will make and agree the final offer. It outlines the responsibilities of both parties leading up to the sale, who's responsible for what, obtaining finance, completing due diligence and preparing the legal documents, etc. It should include a confidentiality clause that protects sensitive information during this negotiation process. This ensures that neither party discloses details of the deal to third parties without permission. And in that, you will have to disclose, in this confidentiality post, your team will have to have access to this. So it's making sure that the team have the required permission to access the information. Very important one, it will give you an exclusivity period. So consider including this, during which the seller agrees not to negotiate with any other potential buyers. It gives you the time to complete your due diligence and finalise the deal without the risk of being outbid by somebody else coming in at the last minute. And then has to have a timetable in. So a timetable for the completion of the deal. It'll have deadlines for due diligence, financing, signing of the final sale and purchase agreement, a clear timeline that will help you keep the thing process on track and reduces the risk of delays. Now, going back to the very start of this podcast, we discussed why it was important to build a team and why we were doing this pre-negotiation and all of this stuff at the very start. And these are the reasons. This is the benefits now when you come to this stage. We've all this set up. We've all of this ready. We have our project management team in place. So everything is ready and we've really built the trust. So the heads of agreement further adds to building the trust between the buyer and seller and clearly outlines expectations and commitments. It demonstrates that both parties are very serious about moving from here on with the transaction and taking it to the next stage, because there's a lot of time and energy and effort goes into this whole acquisition side of it. And nobody wants to do all of this if there's no real outcome at the other end of it. So everybody is clearly understanding, and the seller is not sitting there wondering what's happening. The purchaser is not wondering, will the seller do something, to thwart the whole deal on his behalf. So again, it's the next level in building and building and building. Really, really important though. A heads of agreement should be done by a legal advisor. Although it's non-legal binding, it's important to involve the legal advisors in its creation, because it can help ensure the document accurately reflects the intentions of both parties and all the important points are covered in the heads of agreement. So that should be done by your legal team. Section 9 is the section on conducting due diligence. Now, due diligence is a very cumbersome portion of the whole process, because at this point in time, both parties are kind of indicating that, we're going ahead with the deal and they think the deal is undone, and we have this energy about us that we're going to buy this business, and all of this happens. And then we get into the due diligence part of it. And without the team involved and the project management involved, this is the part where a lot of stuff just falls down, because either the buyer doesn't really have the confidence in the people to do the due diligence, hence back to your team, or the seller doesn't really understand what due diligence is about, hence the heads of agreement, we need to have our due diligence in there. So what is the role of due diligence in an acquisition? So it's a critical stage. It involves thorough investigations of the target business to verify all the information that we have previously got, but a more deeper understanding of what the business, and identify risks and issues that may be coming down the line. So how do we scope the due diligence? So it gives a wide range of areas, but mainly it's legal due diligence, financial due diligence, operational due diligence, and the commercial aspects of a business. They're really the main areas that we need to ensure that we're fully informed on before finalising the purchase. The legal due diligence then, what they're going to do is look at the contracts and agreements that are in place, regulatory compliance, legislation and disputes. For instance, people have properties in a company. Is the title actually in the company? Is there mortgages? All of those searches. So the due diligence at that point in time says contracts and reviewing all significant contracts and agreements. Customer contracts, supplier contracts, leases, employment contracts. They're there now to protect you that what's being said is actually the case. Because once you buy the business, you're responsible for this. The regulatory compliance then, depending on the business that you're in, we need to make sure we're up to date with all the relevant laws, regulations, industry-specific requirements, licensing that's needed in it. It might involve permits, environmental regulations, health and safety standards, everything like that. Legal due diligence covers that. To then look at litigation and disputes. Is there any past litigation or ongoing litigation, lawsuits, regulatory actions, disputes with customers? Understanding the legal landscape then again is crucial. As you can see, this is why I spoke about making sure that the solicitor that's involved in this, or the legal team that's involved in this, has the experience and understanding of these areas of the due diligence. Then we look at the financial, and that's, as it seems, we review the financial statements in detail, income statements, balance sheets, cash flows. We're looking for trends. Our tax advisors then come in and we look at tax compliance, ensuring that everything is up to date, everything is filed properly, there's nothing really obvious that needs to be dealt with. All taxes are paid. Is there any unpaid taxes? Because that becomes your responsibility after the purchase. Then we're looking at debts and liabilities. Review anything, outstanding debts, outstanding liabilities that are there. So you need to make sure that you understand the terms of these obligations and how that impacts the financial health of the business moving forward. And a really critical little one, the working capital. So we need to assess the business working capital requirements to ensure that the business has enough liquidity and cash to cover its day-to-day operations. Insufficient working capital can lead to cash flow problems, especially during a transition period. So that is critical. Like, you can have a business that's extremely profitable, but doesn't have the cash flow to run the business because there's too much credit terms or there's too much stock out there. So that is, I cannot underestimate that. And I want you to put a big asterisk beside that one, working capital. The next area is operational due diligence. What are the business processes? What are the technology and systems in place? How is HR being handled? So you need to evaluate each of these areas, like the process looks at supply chain management, stock control, quality assurances. And are these processes efficient and scalable? Are there bottlenecks or inefficiencies in it? And obviously with the technology and what are the technological systems that are in place? Does the whole IT system need to be changed, software updated? And are the cybersecurity measures in place, up to date and current and available to handle whatever you need to have handled in your business? Because cybersecurity software systems, this is the driver for everything moving forward. The HR, like in a lot of countries in the world, if you buy a business, the employees transfer over as part of the acquisition of that business. So have you understand all the employee contracts, the benefits, the training programs, the performances. So a really detailed HR due diligence needs to be carried out. We then move on to the two of the last areas, which is the commercial due diligence, the market position, the customer relationships, and the supplier relationships. So, we need more detailed substantive testing on our market position, including our competitive strengths. What's our market share? What's our customer base like? What are the key drivers of the business? Are they emerging threats or opportunities coming down the line? For instance, can you not do this anymore within your business? Supplier relationships, evaluate the relationships with your suppliers. Are there any single source dependency? Do you have one big supplier supplying everything with you that could have a massive risk if they just said we don't want to supply anymore, or do you increase the prices? And what are the terms? In the supplier relationships, it's not just suppliers of product that you're looking at, the other people that you're dealing with, your IT company that's involved in that, your insurance company. Massive opportunity now to speak to the insurance brokers that have been dealing with the company for years, and is there insurance issues that they know coming down the line, and talk to them about, what is there any risks to not being able to be insured? If you have a motor dealership and the price of insurance is going up for motor insurance, like these are some of the areas you need to look at. If you're a car dealer now and you have an agreement with a particular brand, is that agreement strong and in place and growing? The last part of this is budgeting for the cost of the due diligence. This can be expensive, especially when you need to bring in the team, accountants, lawyers, industry specialists. But this investment is crucial in avoiding costs later on, or mistakes later on, more importantly. While you don't want to cut corners, it's important to stay within the budget for due diligence. So you do your due diligence, then you'll make a judgment of whether you need to do more substantive testing in critical areas. So talk to the people that are doing the due diligence. Make sure you're happy with what they're trying to actually do in the area of due diligence. And then you need to do, you have a cost-benefit analysis on, is the cost of due diligence appropriate in relation to the size and complexity of the deal? So if you're acquiring a smaller organisation, a more focused due diligence process might be sufficient. While larger deals, you may need to do a more comprehensive approach. So again, it's common sense approach in a lot of this. And no matter what due diligence is done, something can come up in the past. So the due diligence is not 100% guarantee and a check on every single thing that everything is in area. It's the same. You're given an opinion based on the information you have available at that particular point in time. So we're now heading into finalising the sale. You've made the offer. The offer has been accepted. Congratulations. And you're now entering into the finalisation of the sale and the purchase agreement. This part can take a bit of time, so you need to have patience, because when a deal is shook and the hands are shaken by both buyer and seller, the deal is there. You now have to put everything that you've discussed in all the sections above. This all has to be put into place. And this is time consuming, expensive in certain instances in terms of energy and time. So have an understanding of what's involved in the finalising sale and the purchase. Remember I said at the very start of the podcast, or part of it, where I think the project management is one of the most important parts. This is where the project management, this is where everything comes down and it really nails this. So if you have a really good project management in place, they've preempted a lot of the stuff that's needed. They're building this file between the legal team all along as you move through this process, and it will help that immensely. But the project management team, one of the areas is to have the communication between all parties, especially the buyer and the seller, And well, we're acting for the buyer. So especially on the buyer side to say, here's what this is. We are here. Here's what's next. And just, we've often sent emails out, say there's nothing happening. At least they know, because there's nothing in the background worrying like, well, what are they doing? Are they doing this? Are they going to offer? So it's that communication into finalising the sale from the project management is critical. So what are the key points in finalising the sale? So there's a legally binding document created, and that legal binding document, and then to create a share and purchase agreement, an SPA. So these are the two critical documents. So the sale and purchase agreement is a legally binding document to finalise the sale. This sets out the terms and conditions and transactions and defines the legal obligations of both the buyer and the seller. Why is this important? Because it protects your interests as a buyer. It ensures the deal is executed as we've agreed and provides a legal recourse if anything arises after the sale. The legal recourse after the sale is critical. So that's, again, the legal team that have experience in this. But what are the key components of a sale and purchase agreement? So the key components are, some of the obvious ones would be the purchase price and the payment terms, should clearly outline that. The representations and warranties. So representations and warranties are statements made by the seller about the condition of the business. These cover financial statements, assets, liabilities, and compliance. Ensure that these statements are accurate and that you understand the implications if they're not. Critical part of it. What indemnities, as a purchaser, are you looking for the seller? So you will have indemnities in there. This protects you from specific risks, such as undisclosed liabilities or legal issues. The seller agrees to compensate if these materialise after the sale. Indemnities are an important safeguard, so negotiate them really carefully. Really carefully. Then we have conditions precedent. These are specific requirements that must be met before the sale can be completed. This includes regulatory approval, third-party consents, specific resolution of any issues that have come up during the due diligence. So if these are not in place, then the sale can't happen, like if there's transfer of licenses, etc. And some of this can't be done till the sale is agreed. So that's why the timelines are difficult on this, because you're dealing with other parties outside both the parties that we have involved in this, which is the buyer and the seller. And then we have post-completion obligations. So it outlines any post-complete obligations, such as the transfer of assets, employee contracts, customer agreements. These obligations ensure a smooth transition and a continuity of the business. Continuity of the business is critical. The last part of this particular sale and purchase agreement will be the covenants. The covenants are promised is made by the buyer and seller to take or refrain from certain actions after the sale. So the seller is going to agree that he's not going to set up a competing business within a certain time frame or geological area. There wouldn't be much point in selling a business when the seller said, I'm going to start again next door to you. So that covenant is critical. And people don't often put a covenant in, but that is one of the most important things. So the negotiation of the sale and purchase agreement, this involves a legal advisor. So again, both sets of legal advisor on either side will be involved in this. But you need to balance the risk and the reward. So negotiating the sale and purchase, about finding the balance between risk and reward. So you need to make compromise here on both sides, because everybody's not going to agree to everything you ask for us. That's life, you know. So, but you need to make sure that you're reducing your exposure to unnecessary risk. That's the thing about balancing the risk and the reward. And then you need to do a final review before signing your sale and purchase agreement. Final review of all terms, make sure everything is ordered and there's no unresolved issues. Once that's signed, it's legally binding, so it's crucial to get it right. So we're looking at section 11 here, which is the completion of the deal. So what are the main points in finalising the transaction? So there's kind of three real main areas to be dealt with in the completion process. It involves transfer of ownership, exchange of money, signing of the necessary documents, and this marks the official handover of the business from the seller over to the buyer. Really exciting part, and a part that kind of you need to sit down and, you know, make sure the dates are right and have all the team available there to do that. So that completion process, it is that simple when everything is done. Thank you very much. Here is the keys. Here is the official handover. But there is other things to be done besides the completion side of it. There's the whole legal formalities. And these include the transferring of shares or assets, updating the corporate records, registering the new ownership of relevant authorities. So your legal advisors, whereas they've done a lot of the work on this side of it, there's a huge amount of work to be done by the legal team even after the sale has been completed. So you need to talk with them and understand their job that needs to be done after that. And then you need to create your own closing checklist to ensure that all the tasks are completed before and after the transaction. So everything, the transferring of licensing, updating contracts, notifying customers, suppliers, it's your first stage of before the handover of your chance to kind of get your team involved with it. So you need to do a lot of preparation work from what you want to say, what you want to talk to the team about, how you want to introduce the completion when this completion is done. So the work now begins from your perspective in at the completion. The team is starting to fade away now. So how are you going to kind of do that completion just before the transition of the handover? So again, critical part of this stuff, the completion side of it, but it's not as extensive of a part as the others, because all the stuff has been done and it's just the actual physical thing of walking out the door and closing the door. And I can picture people that have done this, walked out and closing the door, and they just went, oh, thank God that part of it is over. So section 12 is the section about transitioning the business over and what is the plan for transitioning the business once the deal is closed. So there's really kind of four main areas in the transition of a business, and they are the handover plan, communication with stakeholders, integration of the systems, and onboarding new management into the business. So the handover plan, so you need to develop a handover plan with the seller to ensure the smooth transition. And this is the part people miss most times. The transition plan is not necessarily, here's your transition plan. You need to work with the seller because he has the insight knowledge of all of this. And there will be a transitional period potentially with the seller where they remain involved in the business in a supporting role and a guidance role. So the roles and responsibilities of the transition plan needs to have a very frank and open conversation, because a seller can sometimes feel that they still own the business. It's a natural tendency to do it. So they need to accept their new role, and you need to get the help from them to transition the business, because the value, if you don't transition it properly, the value is not going to be there, because I've seen it fall apart so many times where you have two different parts of the business, and when you're trying to transition one to the other, your culture doesn't fit. You have a completely different way of doing stuff. So these are things we should have preempted post or pre-acquisition, but it's something that's really, really important. We then need to communicate with all the stakeholders about the change of ownership. We need to look at it. These include employees, customers, suppliers, and partners. So this is a big, big part. How do we communicate? How do we do the PR on this? How do we market this? So reassure them that the business will continue to operate smoothly and that you've committed to maintaining these strong relationships with everybody. And it takes time. Integration of systems and people takes a massive amount of time. So the integration of systems, so you need to build into one existing operation. So you need to integrate what you're doing in your previous business if you have. If it's a straightforward new business, you still need to integrate the systems and processes and culture and values. So you may need to realign IT systems, standardizing procedures, and merging the teams if this is an acquisition that has another business coming into it. So depending on the business type, obviously the transition period is going to be different and the onboarding. But transition is something that is a critical key element. It's number 12 in it, but always and all along, once you sign the agreement, you really need to be planning your transition over to it. And I suppose for me, post-acquisition review is really important as well. So you need to sit down and do this post-acquisition review. You need to conduct a review to make sure everything is done that needs to be done. Everybody has done their bit. This includes evaluating the integration process, financial performance, and achievements of your strategic objective. So the project management is not done until this kind of post-acquisition review is. I would encourage you to reflect on the lessons learned during the acquisition. Take notes, write down what went well, what didn't go well, what you would do differently. Use these insights, because I find people who've made one acquisition will make more. And it'll help to make a better decision process on the next acquisition that they're looking for. So then you need to monitor ongoing the performance of the business closely, because this period of 18 months post-acquisition is the part where it's really going to help you make sure that this is a real success. And the last part is celebrate the acquisition. Acknowledge the achievement. Doing this is a significant achievement for an entrepreneur. And it's really important just to take a moment to celebrate what you've done. Recognize all the hard work and dedication of all the people that went into this process as well. Because everybody has a whatever type of vested interest in making this deal work, whether it's the team on both sides. So, and then just plan for the future. It's time to focus on what you're going to do in the future. So developing that overall strategic plan for the next phase of the business, including the growth, operational improvement, and long-term goals. So that planning for the future is part of the celebration process as well. And all I want to say to you now at this point is we're going to recap. So what did we do today? We walked through an extremely comprehensive 12-step process of buying a business, from building your acquisition team to completing the final purchase. Each stage requires careful planning, strategic thinking, and the support of some really experienced advisors. But whereas buying a business is a really significant undertaking, but with the right approach, it can be really rewarding and profitable. If you follow these steps, you can navigate the complexities of the acquisition process and successfully acquire your business. This is not fully 100% comprehensive, but it just gives you a framework. Other things we'll be looking at is, securing finance and all of that. But this is a comprehensive framework to allow you to look at, if I'm going to acquire, what do I need and what's involved in it. If you're considering buying a business and take the time to plan thoroughly and you need professional guidance, please reach out. We have a fantastic team around us that we can do every aspect of this. And we have strategic partners as well that we can bring in. And those strategic partners are so efficient and so good at what they do as well as us, because we've done it on a number of occasions. So we know how each person works and their roles and responsibilities in this. So all I have to say now is thank you so much, and we'll talk to you in the next episode.